Um, he was born in the 30th of September, 1207, Common Era, 1207. So long time ago, almost about 800 years ago. And it is so interesting that 800 years passing on his death, still he is the most read poet in the United States and worldwide known poet. He was born in the city of Balkh, which is located in northern modern-day Afghanistan, close to Mazar-e Sharif in Afghanistan. Balkh at that time was called the mother of cities. So important city, many cultural activities would be very commonly practiced in this city. He died in 17th of December, 1273 Common Era. He called this time of his death Shebi Arus, which means the night that he will be meeting with the divine. He is celebrating that, that event. The event of his death is the most important thing for him. That he is getting away of this cage and then finding the divine, eventually meeting with the divine. He has several titles. Jalaluddin, the majesty of religion, Arabic. Khuda Vendigar, in Persian, the gift of God. Mevlana, in Turkish, this is his title, our master. And sometimes Rumi uses his friend's name as his signature, Shams al-Tabriz, or Shams al-Tabriz. Mevlevi, generally in Turkish, or Mevlevi, mostly in English is transliterated as Mevlevi generally. Those who have given their hearts to Rumi, they are known as Mevlevi. As far as his ancestors are concerned, most scholars believe that, based on some of Rumi's writings also, he is related to Abu Bakr, the first caliph. He is coming from the offspring of Abu Bakr. Very famously, he has his famous flute called Ney, and his Masnawi starts with this story. Beshno in ney chun shikayet mikunet, as judayi ha hikayet mikunet. Listen to the ney, how it is complaining about its separation from its root. And listen to this story. Ney is talking to you. And this ney became a symbol of Rumi. Today it's a music instrument, but it is symbolizing Rumi's approach, Rumi's understanding. This is a picture of Rumi. This picture, of course, is not a real picture because 700, 800 years ago we didn't have pictures. And I think my understanding is that a little bit Rumi is shown as fat person. From his writings, he was not fat at all. He was actually very tiny. But somehow in the picture they showed him that way. This is his full name, Muhammad bin Hussein Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi. So his name is Muhammad, basically. And migration of Rumi. Now we said he was born in the city of Balkh. Then he migrated from city of Balkh. There are several reasons for his migration. His family migrated. So it's believed that at that time he was about 12 years old when he migrated with his family. The reason his father was a prominent scholar of Islamic law, Islamic theology, and some would say because the city of Balkh was going to be attacked by Mongols, and he escaped the invasion of Mongols. Some would say because the scholars of his region were jealous of him, so he didn't want to fight against them. Instead, he said, "I will just migrate from that place." There are a variety of theories about that. So they migrated from Balkh, and eventually they resided in the city of Konya, which is today in Turkey, in modern-day Turkey, central Anatolia. While he migrated, he met with many people, Rumi and his father. One of them was Fariduddin al-Attar, very famous mystic. Farid al-Din Attar. Attar in Arabic means the one who sells perfume. So Fariduddin, perhaps his title was Attar, maybe he was selling perfume. He's also very well known mystic in the Islamic tradition. He wrote a book called, translated into English as well. In Arabic, is known as Mantiq al-Tayr, the Conference of Birds. It's a remarkable story. Birds are talking, but in a very, very artistic way. And he solved some social problems through the Conference of Birds. So Attar, when he met with the father of Rumi, he said the following statement: "It is hoped that this son of yours will soon set on fire the hearts that burn with divine love." Rumi was 12 years old at that time, but this mystic knew what was going to be happening, and he knew the future of Rumi. He saw, perhaps, because in the Islamic tradition, God may show some of his saints about future events. So when they look at someone, they can see 10 years from now, 15 years from now, maybe 100 years from now, according to the levels of sainthood. So again, Rumi and his father were two oceans, referring to the Quranic verse. Attar would say, two seas meeting together. Maraj al-Bahraini yaltaqiyan. The two seas are coming together. So it is believed that this journey from Balkh took through Nishapur, then Baghdad, then Mecca. They went to Mecca for pilgrimage. Then Medina. From Medina, they went to Jerusalem. From Jerusalem, they went to Damascus, Aleppo, and then initially Rumi thought, his father thought to reside in Malatya, which is a city in eastern part of Turkey. Then they visited Malatya. They remained some time, for a little time there, and then to Karaman, which is another city close to Konya, and then eventually they resided in the city of Konya at the invitation of the king of the time. Alaaddin Keykubat invited Rumi and said, "We will arrange anything for you, anything you want, just come to Konya." He became a kind of advisor for them. We have stories when they would invite him to the palace for food. He would remain at the door until all poor people would enter. Then he would enter. because you say you invite him, but poor people are left behind. So he would take the poor people with him to the palace. They were asking Rumi's father, where are you going during his journey? He would say, we came from God, we are again going to God, we have no strength except for God. So that was his response. He would not say we are going to Konya or we are going to Malatya. We are coming from God, we are going to God. Well, that's the Quranic verse. We are from God and we are returning to God eventually. Which is Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. We are from God and we are returning to God. So his purpose was not to showing the location that he would go, but the real location, the real return, which is the afterlife. This is to show you a picture of the area. I think I should have another picture. This is actually showing the area when Rumi initially started. So he started from this place, came all this way, that way, and eventually came to the city of Konya. A long, long trip. But in his book, the Mathnawi and even Diwan Kabir, you don't see the mention of these difficulties, during his trip. Always, he is joyful, remarkably joyful. No complaints at all in his life. We have some stories. One day, he gets a guest, comes to home and asks his wife, do we have any food at home? And his wife says, we don't have any food actually. And he says, thanks to God, today our house is similar to the house of the Prophet. Because there was no food in the house of the Prophet. So that's the way he would look at the things. This is his tomb in the city of Konya, and a mosque built next to his tomb. Last summer I visited this place, and they told me that annually about 2 million people are visiting. It's now serving as a museum, a Rumi museum. This is a mosque again, called Alaaddin Keykubat Mosque, which is very close to his tomb, and named after the Seljuk Sultan in the area. So we have also years of joy and sorrow for Rumi. Rumi lost his mother in this year. In year 1225, he also lost his father. In the same year, he married Gevher Khatun, very prominent lady, known for her beauty and piety at the same time. She gave birth to Sultan Walad and Alaaddin, two sons to Rumi. After 4 years, his wife passed away. Rumi remarried, this time married Kara Khatun, another prominent lady. Kara Khatun gave birth to a son and a daughter for Rumi. His philosophy, if we look at his philosophy, what is the essential element of Rumi's philosophy? Basically, all what he would like is to have al-insan al-kamil, the perfect human being. How human being can become a real human being. Because not everyone who is walking on two legs are considered human beings. human being is very high quality. And that's why we have some human beings in the shape of human beings, but they are wolves. Some of them are different creatures. Well, in reality, Rumi would say the goal is to make human being real human being, because لَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانَ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ. That's what God says. We have created human beings in the most beautiful form. So how this human being becomes, in the same form that God created originally? He gives some descriptions of such a human being. He says, knowledgeable, Gnostic, Arifun Billah, to know God, a lover of God, a friend of God, and a beloved of God. So these qualities, Rumi would say, are the qualities of perfect human being. So step by step, through these qualities, they will elevate, they will develop until they reach to that level of perfect human being, insan kamil. His meeting with Shams is very significant event in his life. Historically, it's believed that in 1244, Rumi met with a prominent mystic called Shams al-Tabriz, or Shamsi Tabrizi. Tabriz is a city in Iran, modern-day Iran. So he was coming from this area, and he came to Konya and visited Rumi. Initially, Rumi didn't actually care about him. So we have a story that Rumi was teaching his students. Rumi was a teacher, was like a university professor. So he was teaching, and Shams took his book and threw it into the pond of water. And Rumi said, "What are you doing? I had only one copy, and now it is gone." And Shams takes the book back, and Rumi looks at the book. He took the book out of water, but it's not wet. So Rumi was surprised, and Shams said, "Rumi, there is a knowledge beyond this knowledge that you are teaching now. So you have to learn that knowledge." And then Rumi says, "Okay, tell me this knowledge. Teach me about this knowledge." So it is believed that he taught Rumi and Rumi taught him. Both were benefiting from each other spiritually. That's why they are friends. They are considered friends. And Rumi loved Shams remarkably. And the love between them, of course, some people in West, if they don't understand the mystical love, they think, oh, perhaps even there are some people who say they were gays. That is totally not understanding Rumi at all, because this mystical love is so deep, they cannot understand unless they are mystics. There is a great love for the master in the mystical tradition of Islam, and that's why when some of Rumi's people realize that Rumi is spending time with Shams, they are studying together, they said Rumi is leaving us and spending all his time on Shams. They become jealous about Shams, and it's believed that Shams left them after that. Some people would say Rumi, which is a Sufi term, saw the divine light in his forehead. When he looked at Rumi, he would see the divine light, and that's why he was so much becoming in love with Shams. The divine light is something different that's so attractive that mystics will be attracted to them. Excuse me. We have some excuse me. Some narratives that kind of conversation between Shams and Rumi. Shams asks Rumi, he says, is Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, greater or Bayazid Bastami? Bayazid Bastami also is a mystic. And Rumi says, what kind of question is this? Of course Muhammad is greater. He is the prophet of God, he is the messenger of God. Then Shams says, yes, but Muhammad says, sometimes my heart gets veiled. Therefore, 70 times I seek refuge in my Lord and ask for forgiveness. While Bayazid says, I disassociate myself from all imperfect attributes. What great and event is my creation and appearance? And there exists nothing under the robe I wear other than God. So Bayazid is like saying that I am united with God. And Prophet says, I have veils. Apparently, so he's asking Rumi, testing Rumi, how Rumi will respond to this. And Rumi says, Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, alayhi salatu wasalam, was advancing 70 levels every day. 70 levels of spirituality every day. And every time he advanced to a level, he was ashamed of his state in the lower level and asked for forgiveness. On the other hand, Bayazid was amazed by the greatness of the first level he reached, and he lost himself and said these words. So basically, Bayazid was in the first level, and he was not at that level, and that's why he didn't know the higher levels. And that's why Rumi would respond to Shams that way. And this is about the first departure of Shams. And I think I mentioned that. We have some narratives that Rumi sent letters to Shams, invited him to come back. Some on Rumi's works, the monumental work of Rumi, I would say perhaps the most important work is the Mathnawi, which is originally written in Persian language, translated into Arabic, translated into English as well, translated I think into English in 1925 by Reynold Nicholson, a very prominent mystic, expert of mysticism, and very well versed in Persian language, and that's why he remarkably translated, and I think still it is the most reliable. It is not poetry, he translated into prose, but it is very reliable as far as the original message of Rumi is concerned. So Mathnawi, it contains over 25,000 couplets. All verses share the same meter in poetic language. Rumi speaks of his book in the foreword. The Mathnawi is a path for those who want to attain the truth and be aware of the secrets of God. It is the essence of the essence of the essence of religion. Some people were criticizing Rumi, but he would say this is the essence of the essence of the essence of religion. It's not the outward of religion, but the essence of religion. So Rumi in his poems does not speak about how many rak'ah you have to pray daily, because that's not his field. That is the area of fiqh, jurisprudence. But he speaks how you can find God in your prayer, how you can have feeling the presence of God in your prayer. Yes, that is the meaning of prayer, That is concentration in prayer. That's why when Imam Ali was praying, he would not remember anything other than prayer itself. When we pray, we think of money, how much of money do I have, and half of our hearts on money and half of hearts on God, and then we mix all of them. So that is actually what Rumi wanted to get rid of in his time, and that's in his writings. And his the other book, Diwan-i Kabir, also is a very remarkable book of Rumi. A very famous Sufi speaks of the Mathnawi, saying, the Mathnawi is a sign enough to show the value of that peerless king of the spiritual world. How can I describe the values of that great person? He is not a prophet, but he has a book. That is what Mevlana Jami, Abdul Rahman Jami, very famous mystic. He wrote beautiful poems also in Persian language. And that he speaks of Rumi. Rumi is not a prophet, because prophethood ended with Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. But he has a book, the Mathnawi. The death of Rumi. Rumi died as I said, in September 17, 1273, in the city of Konya, and we have his tomb in this city. He would recite this, some would say it's hadith, and some would say it's the saying of Umar, radiallahu anhu, die before you die. Mutu qabla an tamutu. Die before you die. How you can die before you die? Rumi would repeat this, basically to remember that, be prepared for it in the afterlife. If you are ready, if you are prepared, then that will be like Shebi Arus, as Rumi would say, the night that you meet with the divine. That's why Rumi would have ishtiyaq, longing for meeting with the divine. Longing. He migrated from the transient world to the world of eternity. He wrote a poem that demonstrates his understanding of that. When he passed away, it is believed that in his funeral, Christians, Jews, Muslims all participated. Christians would say, we have lost our Jesus. Jews would say, we have lost our Moses. Because in his circle, there were many nationalities and people who belonged to different religious traditions. And Rumi would be open to all of them. Just come, whoever you are. A very famous statement, come whoever you are. If you have broken your promise 1,000 times, still come. Our door is not the door of hopelessness. That is, his poem on death. He says, if God tears down the house of the body, do not lament, do not complain. Know this well, you are in fact imprisoned in the prison of your body. You are in prison in the prison of your body. When that comes and that place collapses, you will be free. So this is very commonly known for mystics. The body is like a cage. The spirit is like a bird in the cage. Bird is imprisoned in the cage. When you die, the bird flies and finds its destination, which is the realm of spirits. The bird, the soul, the spirit goes to that realm. Okay, the legacy of Rumi. Rumi, beloved by the people of all faiths, as I said. In Turkey, the Sheb-i Arus is annually celebrated every year on the 17th of December. There is a huge celebration. Generally, the presidents, like the administrators, are all participating, and people sometimes from distant places go for that celebration. Through tolerance, Rumi left a great legacy of understanding and acceptance. Today, I think one of the reasons that Rumi became so popular, his understanding of inclusiveness. He is accepting. He has tolerance. He does not act judgmentally. And we have this legacy in our modern day, actually. I mentioned this Paragon. So he is known as the Sultan of Love. His term for love is ashq, which is a very central theme in the Sufi parlance, which comes from the divine, actually, name Al-Wadud. Al-Wadud. Allah is Al-Wadud, the beloved and the lover. Rumi says, our Prophet's way is the way of love. We are the children of love, and our mother is love. He speaks of the divine love, the love one feels for God. Rumi says, love is the attribute of God who has need to anyone, does not need to anyone. To be in love with anyone other than him is a fake love. If you are in love with anything other than God, according to Rumi, that is fake. Fake love. The real love is the love for God. Other than that, it is considered fake. Well, you say, I love my car, I love my house. That is, for Rumi, that is considered fake one. So what is love then? Rumi says, when you become like me, you'll understand. Then you'll understand what is love, actually. He speaks a lot about love. It's a mystery. Love for Rumi is an ocean whose depth cannot be plumbed. Would you like to count the drops of the sea? Rumi says. Can you count the drops of a sea? Pacific Ocean, can you count the drops of it? So you cannot. That's love in Rumi's understanding. That's the divine love. Love existed to be realized, not to be discussed. To be realized. You can talk about it, but that is not actually the real love. The real love is experiential. You feel it. And that's why when you have that divine love, Rumi says, if you become like me, you will understand. And maybe you will be a poet, basically, He says, if I should continue my explanation of love, 100 resurrections would pass before I could complete it. Still, I have to mention, he would say, 100 resurrections will pass, and still I will not be completing this concept. Whatever you have heard is the shell. The kernel of love is a mystery that cannot be divulged. Love is an ocean whose depth cannot be plumbed. He says, I feel repentant when I become influenced by love. My pen moved over the paper and the pen wouldn't dare and split. Because the pen could not write love. It would split. Because it is so deep and the pen would say, I cannot do that. This is beyond my capacity. Love transforms. Through love, all that is bitter will be sweet. Through love, all that is copper will be gold. So love transforms copper into gold. Through love, all dregs will turn to purest wine. Through love, all pain will turn to medicine. Apparently it might be pain, but actually it becomes medicine. Through love, the dead will all become alive. Through love, the kind does turn into a slave. Servant. Again, this is from Methnawi. So what is the source of love? There is a Quranic verse. Rumi refers to this Quranic verse. God will bring a people whom He loves and who love Him, humble towards the believers and disdainful towards the unbelievers, men who struggle in the path of God, not fearing the blame of any blamer. The main aspect in this verse, يُحِبُّهُمْ وَيُحِبُّونَهُ. They love God and God loves them. A kind of people. It talks of a group of people. And Rumi takes these as kind of mystics who are in divine love. And they love God and God loves them. The latter derives its existence for the former. So the love of human beings for God comes from the love of God for them. In fact, in Rumi's understanding, when you look more deeply, the essence, the source of all kinds of love is this divine love. Even the book that I edited and translated. Do you have a copy of that book? For sure. I think we had a copy. This one, yeah. This is by a very famous Sufi master who passed away, and it was a great honor to translate it into English and edit it. When I worked on it, it took me about 3 years to finish it. And he was 95 years old. And he said, I think God will not take my soul until the book is finished. And really he was right. After I finished, and I sent him a copy, it was published, I think in the same year he passed away after I finished it. So he is a remarkable personality, and that's why it's a Mevlevi perspective. Mevlevi, he is one of the followers of Rumi. And he says even romance, love, is actually a reflection of the divine love. Eventually it should lead to the divine love. What we call it romance is not like a terrible love. It is a divine love reflected that way. And then eventually, he says, that love will turn into divine love. That's why we have a very famous story, Layla and Majnun. Majnun became in love with Layla, and then after they get married, and he says, Layla, you know, I spent all this time after you, and you know, just you're a regular human being. So I just realized that remarkable love was not only for you, it was for God. Now I like to thank you that you led me to God, to the divine love. The love of Layla turns into the love of God eventually. So that's why in his understanding, the source of love eventually God. It takes to the divine love. And I will talk a little bit about, you know, all, because sometimes Rumi speaks of his people, of his time. So maybe we may need to modify some of Rumi's understanding according to our time. So I will elaborate on that a little bit. Love or the attributes of God. Love, in Rumi's understanding, is essential. Even if you are a scholar, you have to have love. And that's why he says, if love's pulse does not beat within a man, let him be Plato. He is but a donkey. Rumi says an ass, you know, like a donkey. Well, even if he's Plato, he says, Plato is a very famous philosopher, but if there is no love in that person, he is not a real human being. This is his understanding. If a head is not full of love, that head is behind the tail. The tail. That head should not be at that place, you know, it should be behind. It's very, very powerful again. He divides into two, true love, which is ishq haqiqi, and derivative love, ishq majazi, love for anything else. As I said, but ishq majazi eventually leads to ishq haqiqi. It has to lead. It has to lead to a real love, which is the divine love. He speaks of love and intellect. Again, intellect in Rumi's understanding is beyond, is actually considerably less important than love in Rumi's understanding. And that's why he says the intellect attempting to convey love is like an ass in the morass, and the pen that is described, it breaks into pieces. Intellect wanes when love comes. Love hangs intellect on the gallows. If for your chicken you have built a den, a camel will not fit there. You know, you have a den. Well, for chicken, camel will not fit there. And chicken is reason, love is the camel, glorious and high. Reason is like a chicken in comparison to camel. Camel is love, and chicken is reason. But he praises intellect to a certain extent. Intellect of saints. He praises that intellect. That is an intellect mixed with divine love. Or would be intellect of saints and intellect of the prophets. All prophets, basically, is very high. He compares it to the wings of Angel Gabriel. They can fly with that intellect. So perhaps may not be accurate to say Rumi was totally against intellect, but I think he was talking about an intellect that has not found the divine. That intellect has not reached its goal, and that intellect is weak in his understanding. Otherwise, in his Mathnawi, in his Diwan Kabir, he uses highly intellectual capacity, very, very intellectual level. Love and the veils. let me skip that for the sake of time. Love of the world. Now, Rumi speaks very negatively about the worldly life. This worldly life is terrible. This worldly life is distracting. But I found very interesting approach, which is by a prominent Islamic scholar who said, Bediüzzaman Said Nursi. We just mentioned Professor Ibrahim mentioned his name. I'm the director of that chair, named after him, after Nursi. Bediüzzaman Said Nursi, he considers Rumi as his predecessor. He says, if I were in his time, I would have written the Matnavi. If Rumi were in my time, he would have written the Risale-i-Nur, the Treatises of Life, which is his writings, his books. He says the reason that mystics like Rumi spoke so negatively about the world is not all types of the worldly life, but one type of it. But they didn't have time to elaborate, so people understood that, well, the world is terrible, it's negative, always negative. He said, no, it's not negative always. It is divided into three. It has three faces. Two faces of it are good, one face is not good. And therefore he says, the face that is good is the world is the reflection of the divine names. Well, if you look at the trees, the flowers, the stars, human beings are all reflecting the divine names. The seas. That's why the Quran invites people to contemplate. وَيَتَفَكَّرُونَ فِي خَلْقِ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. Praising people who are contemplating in the creation of heavens and earth. Contemplate. Look at the stars, how they are beautifully smiling at your face. Flowers, how beautifully organized, prepared. Fruits, an apple. You look at it, how beautifully prepared, with beautiful shape, with beautiful smell. All of these are reflecting the divine names. In one living creature, more than 25 names of God are reflected. They are like mirrors of the divine names. So with this regard, this worldly place is a beautiful place. It's a place of contemplation and thinking deeply. This is one aspect. And Nursi says this is the aspect that is beautiful and positive. The second aspect comes from the hadith of the Prophet, which says, "Ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah." This world is the farm of the afterlife. You sow seeds in this farm, but the harvest is in the afterlife. You may not harvest. You do good deeds, and you may not see the result of your good deeds. But in the afterlife, you will harvest. So with this regard, this worldly life is positive, because if there is no this worldly life, how you can sow seeds of beautiful things, beautiful actions. So with that regard, again, this worldly life is positive, because this is a place when you gain afterlife through your good deeds, your good actions, your good behaviors. And that's why it is a mazra, it is a farm of the afterlife. And the third phase that is negative, and Rumi speaks of, and Nursi says that is what actually Rumi and many other mystics spoke about it. And that is the world is a place of indulgence. Like negative indulgence, negative behaviors, spending the entire life in indulgence. That is negative side of the world. Following the desires, whatever your desire says, you follow that direction. And that is negative one. That is what the mystics spoke against the worldly life. And I think that's why sometimes when we, in this book, I try to make sure, that modern mind understands Rumi accurately. Because if we don't have that sense, sometimes we may be misled by some poems of Rumi. I've heard that Madonna is using Rumi's poems in nightclubs, like singing. You can sing, you can say it, but Rumi, so spiritual. Yeah, he speaks of wine. If you don't understand what kind of wine he speaks, you'll say, well, he was drunken. And actually, we don't have any reference that throughout his life, Rumi drank wine. Because in Islam it is alcohol, and alcohol is prohibited. But he says our wine is not drunk with lips. So this is a wine that you don't use your lips while drinking, while drinking. It is more spiritual. It's a spiritual one. He speaks of something more spiritual. Mystics speak about this allegorical terms. They use allegorical terms, and people of our time, if they don't understand, they think that that is exactly very, very compatible with our modern life. Drink as much as you can and then become drunken, and then, that is not Rumi actually. It should be understood accurately and based on the mystical tradition of Islam. Again, love of spouse, for example, again, Nursi elaborates on Rumi's understanding of love. He says, when Rumi says anything other than the love of God is fake, then you love your spouse. Is it fake? Nursi said, no, it's not fake. That could be, that love could be at the same time love for God. Because you love your spouse for the sake of God. How do we know that your love is for the sake of God? And he says, when your spouse become older, you love more. If that is the case, then your love is for the sake of God. Otherwise, maybe you are loving just for beauty, and her beauty is lost because she is old, and you no longer love her. That means your love was not really for the sake of God. It was for physicality. And Nursi would say that's not real. But that love for spouse can be really love for God at the same time. So, for example, you love your car, and I said, can that be also divine love? In Nursi's understanding, yes, it can be. Because if you use that car for beautiful things, helping people, carrying water for people who need water, carrying food for people who need food, that car becomes so precious, and that love for that car really becomes a divine love. So Rumi, I would say, was mentioning this, but if he had mentioned this to the people of his time, they would not understand this perhaps. So Nursi modifies Rumi's understanding of love according to our time. And that's why these types of love still can be very positive and can be really beneficial at the same time. Um, some poems of Rumi, for example, this is very beautiful. He is addressing God about, his love for God. O Lord, who gives life to my life, lift the veil on your face. O you who joins me in my grief and my problems. O my Lord, wherever I am, you are with me. O beloved, who is with me in the night. O the one who hears my supplications, timely and untimely. Whenever I supplicate, he hears. O my Lord, who has sent the fire of love to all atoms of my body. You are exalted from all shapes and all bodies, and you are cleaner than all spirits. You have no image or shape, but you are the magnet of all my shapes. All my existence runs towards you and annihilates in you. Now, if you read this statement with a Taoist approach, I think you will find a remarkable correlation. It's very, very powerful. I'm teaching a course at John Carroll University called Introduction to Religious Studies. And I am so fascinated because I read Rumi, and sometimes I read Taoist approach to nature, and how it is so much connected to each other. It's remarkable to find this actually approach, in such early time and in our modern time. And then there is Rumi again searching for the divine. There is another soul in your soul. You seek for that soul. Yes, you have a soul, but there is another soul, and you seek for that soul. In the mountain of your body, there is a highly valuable element. You seek for the mind of that element. O mystic who looks around, if you search for him, don't look for him outside. For him, look inside. And that's why we have, in the Islamic tradition, we have two kinds of contemplation. One outside, the other one is inside. Inside is more powerful and more reliable because it becomes experiential. Outside can be misled. You see like very strong causes and you may be stuck there. But inside is very powerful. Inside contemplation. So if you're searching for God, look inside first and then go outside. Love for the Prophet, and Rumi has very beautiful poems about his love for the Prophet. There is our real homeland, and we will return to it. The young chance is our friend. Sacrificing the soul is our job. And the head of our caravan is Mustafa. Mustafa is the name of the Prophet Muhammad. Mustafa means the elected one, the chosen one. So he is the head of the caravan. The caravan, in this caravan, Rumi considers himself in this caravan. Shahi Gailani, these remarkable mystics, Shahi Naqshband, Imam Rabbani, Ahmed Sarhandi, all these were in this caravan. And Rumi says, the head of the caravan is Mustafa, the chosen one, with whom the whole universe is proud. Mustafa, the elected one, peace be upon him, is so high a being that the moon did not dare to see his face and split. The moon did not dare to see his face and split. We have some narratives about the miracles of the Prophet. On one occasion, people of Mecca asked him for a miracle. And he says, if I point at this moon and it splits, will you believe it? And they say yes. And the Prophet points, and they see with their naked eyes, the moon splits. But then they say, Muhammad did a magic. They did not believe. Some of them believed, but still some of them did not believe. So Rumi speaks of this miracle of the Prophet and says, the moon could not dare to see the face of the Prophet. It was so beautiful, it split. The moon split. The fragrance of the wind of this spring comes from his blessed hair. The shining of our imagination comes from his beauty, which reminds us of the newly rising sun. So he describes the Prophet. In the Islamic tradition, Prophet Joseph is known for his handsomeness. When they say this person is beautiful, is handsome, he has some beauty of Joseph. But Rumi says, in comparison to Prophet Muhammad, Joseph was not so beautiful. He was beautiful, but the beauty of Prophet Muhammad was even higher than the beauty of Joseph, because he's so much describing the beauty of the Prophet. And I think my computer says my battery is coming to an end, and my lecture also is coming to an end. So finally, the love of the Prophet, and I think this is very beautiful. من بنده قرآنم اگر جان دارم من خاکی راه محمد مختارم. I am the servant of the Quran as long as I live. I am the soil where the foot of Muhammad stepped. He considers himself as the soil on which Prophet Muhammad stepped. So this indicates his remarkable love for the Prophet as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Any questions from the audience?
Where can I buy that book?
Amazon.com. It's available on Amazon. I don't know, Amazon is coming to Hong Kong, right? Yeah, it should be available.
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Professor, Rumi's poem is so popular in the Western world. Do you think it's people interested in love to the divine, or they read the poem as the love to human beings?
I think the Rumi's approach, I think, love is one aspect of it. But what the Western world now in need is spiritual life, because people, many people, I would say, many people are fed up with materialistic life. They have everything, but still there is a need for something more. And many people find that in Rumi's poems. It gives much more spiritual strength. Christians, I know many Christian friends who are fascinated by Rumi's writings. And in fact, I was invited to a church to give a talk, and they said, we use Rumi's poems in our church ceremonies, because it is really very compatible with the spiritual life that Jesus suggested, and which is also the same spiritual life that the Prophet of Islam, Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, suggested. So in the Western world, I think that's why there is a great demand for that dimension of human spirit, of human soul. And it is growing because people look for something more. As we know, in
in America in 1960s, there was a movement, a hippie movement. They just rejected everything. They didn't like what was going on, so they became anarchists. Some of them found Rumi. Believe me or not, I know one of them found Rumi and then studied, and now he's a professor at one of American universities, and he's one of the most, scholars who he learned Farsi to read Rumi from the original source. So, Rumi became a kind of hope for many people after that. Some people, like Coleman Barks, put Rumi's writings in a poetic style. Reynold Nicholson translated into English, but in prose. It was good, it was very reliable, but it was not very readable. So Coleman Barks did a good service. He is a great poet in America. So he put those writings of Rumi in prose into poetic style. And I think he did a very, very good job on that. And he made Rumi much more visible now in the United States. Yeah, do you have another question? All questions are welcome.
Professor, how did we lose this tolerance and inclusiveness that seems to be being lost in the modern age? How do we lose it?
How do we lose it? It's a long story.
Maybe too long.
I think it's a long story. Maybe to, I think always, as human beings, we have weaknesses, like greed, variety of weaknesses. And in some periods of time, some weaknesses become stronger and much more dominant. Perhaps our time is a time, especially I would say, maybe since the mid of 20th century, maybe the beginning of 20th century, or maybe even a little bit earlier, till the second half of 20th century, until 1960s, 70s. Materialistic life was the most dominant. There is one prominent Canadian scholar wrote a book called The Secular Age. We lost connection to the soul. If this is not in laboratory and I cannot test it, I cannot believe it. That was, like a general understanding, positivism. So for example, how you measure love, love is invisible. What is the color of it? Well, that means it is, love is just some kind of blood connection, cells in the body, and that cause love. Well, that is a very simplistic way of saying it, So I think that's why now we have new approaches in the area of psychology, in the area of variety of sciences now are developing, talking about soul and the very powerful elements of the soul, human dimensions, not only body, but there is another dimension of human being. You put some people, as one Islamic scholar says, addressing people who are focusing on indulgence. If we put people in indulgence, they will become happy. And he says, if you put the body of a human being in a paradise-like place and put the spirit of that person in hell, can that person become happy? Bodily, he's in paradise, but spiritually, he's in hell. That person cannot be happy. It's impossible. So that's why we need much more focus. The goal, is it the happiness of human beings? Okay, that's the goal. Well, then we need to focus on spirit as well. Because the real spirit, the real happiness is the happiness of spirit, actually. If you put gallows in front of the eyes of a person, but the gallows is made of gold. It's very beautiful, and the carpet that takes you to the gallows is like a red carpet. Can this person be considered happy? Even if you put the most beautiful carpet there, you are hanging the person. That is what we missed. And now I think there is a new dimension towards spirituality. The spiritual life is attracting many people. People are contemplating, thinking, what is the missing point? We miss something. And I think there is a return to the spiritual life. And maybe this trend, maybe the people of religions, Islam, Christianity, the two major religious traditions in the world, and other religious traditions, they will focus, because one of the mistakes that happen is also related to the religious personalities as well, because they also focus too much on rituals rather than the essence of religion, appearance, not the essence. There is a remarkable saying. The Prophet says, God does not look at your appearance. God looks at your hearts. Inna Allah la yanzuru ila suwarikum, walakin yanzuru ila qulubikum. God does not look at your appearance. God looks at your hearts. The people of religion also focused on the appearance rather than on the heart, on the essence, the place where really to be. And now there is a dimension returning to that aspect as well, that strengthen of the spiritual dimension, the inner aspect of religion. And I think this trend is promising. In the future, it will become stronger. That's why I'm very optimistic. In my book, not this one, and I wrote another one, I think Professor Iran mentioned, called Islam's Jesus. Tomorrow, God willing, inshallah, I will give a talk on that book at the Chinese University of Hong Kong. I mentioned this. One Islamic scholar speaks of Jesus coming, and he says, the coming of Jesus is not to wait for a person coming from sky. The coming of Jesus is the dominant dimension of the message of Jesus. Essentially, peace, love, and mercy. That is the essential elements of Jesus' message. And this is the essential element of Muhammad's message. Peace and blessings be upon him. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We have sent you as a mercy for all worlds. If the Prophet is a mercy, that is the meaning of the message of Jesus. So, and I said, the future of humanity is to strengthen this dimension through cooperation of religious traditions. Especially because it is directly about Jesus, Christianity and Islam. They both look at Jesus with great esteem. Jesus is, like the Messiah of Islam. And that's why, well, let's come together then on the essence of his message. And that is what the Prophet meant. Islamic scholars, several Islamic scholars I found fascinating, that how they developed this idea of allegorical understanding of the saying of the Prophet. Some would consider early time. Yeah, I said, it takes a lot of time. Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor. Well, I will ask a follow-up question. You said that probably the dominance of positivism is one reason that how we came to this point. So do you see, for my question is a bit about social sciences, the future of social sciences is light in maybe post-positivist stances that might bring new approaches, as you said, bringing soul, bringing maybe love into the social sciences. Because in today's social science, for example, in international relations, it's impossible to talk about love, right?
Yes.
But should we bring the love in international relations? Or does it make any sense? Or, what do you say?
Yes, I think it is possible. It is possible to bring love into that field. Maybe for sociology, it might be too early. Because sociology is really very positivist. Auguste Comte, he says, God is human being, and the worship is respect for human beings. He's so much positivist, but we need the sociology of Ibn Khaldun. And he was a remarkable Muslim scholar, but also very remarkable in social science. Some people would say he was the founder, much more before Auguste Comte, the founder of sociology. So maybe in the future we will need to address that dimension because when we understand human beings with all their dimensions, I think we will be more careful to just generalize, because in the Quranic language, every human being is a universe. Every human being is a universe, and that's why every human being deserves a special attention. And now you are in a society, so that society deserves greater attention, and that's why in the future I think will be much more emphasis on various aspects of the society, not only just social dimension, but spiritual dimension. There are many Islamic scholars who have developed. We don't have time to speak on all of them. We need another lecture. Yeah, thank you. That was a very good question.
Is there any kind of way that we can use the concept of love to take over the money as we use love to trade? For example, like we provide a friendship, our love, in order to, as for return, perhaps lunch, perhaps something,
Yes.
but in order to cancel the reality of using the concept of money. Is
Yes.
there any kind of chances that will
Yeah,
be
that's a very
happening?
good question. I have been struggling to cancel. I remember, in America we have, as you very well mentioned, we have a statement that says, there is no free lunch. If someone gives you lunch, that means they have some benefits in it. And I try to convince my American friends, in Turkish culture, there is free lunch. You know, you give it, and you give it for the sake of God, and forget it. That's it. Well, you know, I took a group of my friends, my colleagues to Turkey. We spent about 15 days together, and eventually they were convinced that yes, there is free lunch.
Can you go to a Turkish restaurant if that's the case?
I can, you know, you are right. Maybe if you take a Turkish friend,
Yes.
he will take you to Turkish restaurant, because that Turkish restaurant also needs money, you know, to survive. You know, if all people are going there and say, well, you know, give us free, it will not be able to survive. But I think there is one dimension that what we call it sacrificing. You know, money in that regard becomes a vehicle. This, you know, like vehicle is good by itself, but if you make that as your target, as your goal, that is not good. You know, you are having a vehicle to take you to, let's say, a beautiful museum, and you spend all your time on the vehicle and you miss the museum. So what is the point? And that is missing the point. And that's why money is good as long as it serves good things. It's good to have money. It's not negative. We have a very famous tradition in Islam. Is it better to be a poor person and thankful? Or, sorry, is it better to be a poor person and patient, or a rich person and thankful? Well, ulama Islam, scholars of Islam, have agreed that it is better to be a rich person and thankful. So poverty is not, poverty is not negative always, but it's not very ideal to become poor. It's good to be wealthy. It's good to have money, but you shouldn't make that money your goal. You shouldn't sacrifice, you know, like your values, your honor, your dignity for money. You should say this money is good for helping people. I will have that money, well, only to make it as a vehicle for good things. Spend on my family and spend on people. You know, that will be the goal. But if you make it as your major goal, it will be missing the point, actually. So how you can do that? Through exercising, strengthening your spiritual life. Then you will see something that is more important than money. Money cannot buy happiness. That's what they say. Happiness is something different. It's much more spiritual.
Money cannot buy love.
Yes. Money cannot buy love, yes. But money is not negative always. So that's why money can be really very helpful, very good. If I don't have money, how could I come all the way from America to Hong Kong? So there is a need for money to pay, for something. So it is useful when it is used in the proper way. Thank you very much. Yes.
Maybe one last question. There was a lot of discussion on love, and then, well, most of the things that we have seen and we have heard, it was metaphorical love, kind of elevated, and it's out of this world. It's spiritual wine, and then those kind of things. And when we talk about practical world, and there was a question about money as well, that my question would be, what is the balance? How to strike that balance? That high values, love, the real world, and then how do you strike the balance? Because if people think about you as, okay, come, whatever you have done, right? I mean, come from wherever you are. I'll accept you. Rumi says that, right? Then, well, everyone will think that you're insane. This is one point. On the other hand, if you're too practical and there is no spiritual life at all, then we lose our love.
Yes.
Right?
I
So
think-
what
I
was
think
the
it's
practical
very
way to strike a
significant,
balance?
It's very significant to keep that balance. Keep that balance. Now, I think what Rumi says with come wherever you are, come. He suggests that you shouldn't be hopeless. In Islam, hopelessness is prohibited. You shouldn't be hopeless. Whatever you are, whatever your situation, that's why if you have broken your promise 1,000 times, still you shouldn't be hopeless. Still there is an exit from that difficult situation. So Rumi shows that exit. Come and you will be accepted. That's one. Human beings are not only soul, they have body also. So body needs desire. Body needs something. You cannot say, I will rely on 5 grains of rice a day, as Buddha did, and he fainted. That's impossible. You need to eat. You have your some bodily desires as well, and that should be also addressed. But all this should be in legitimate ways. Money, for example, it should be in legitimate way. Your desire should be satisfied in legitimate way. That's why stealing, you may satisfy your desires through stealing. That's not acceptable. Through transgressing on some other's rights, it's not acceptable. So you should have some boundaries, some limitations, and therefore, and that is what the Quran says. Vie with one another for good deeds. Good deeds. You will make your life a life that is full of good deeds. For example, you work daily, but that work can be really a prayer at the same time if you have a good intention. And that's why it's not negative. You work and you have good intention. For example, if I don't work, my children will remain hungry. So I have to find something for them in a legitimate way, in a just way. That is considered an act of worship, because you are working, as we say in the Islamic tradition, kasb halal, to get lawful gain for your family. And that is accepted and that is praiseworthy in the Islamic tradition. There is one, some would say it's hadith of the Prophet. Live a life of spirituality as if you are dying tomorrow. And live a life of world as if you will never die. So if you keep that balance, you are on the right track. That's right, to keep that balance. Tomorrow, there's the end of your life. How you will become spiritual?
Difficult answer.
Yes.
Very Buddhism-like, I say.
Oh, really? Yes.
How can we learn all the concepts of love, of 7 consonants of love?
Experientially. How can we learn, right?
Yes.
How can we learn?
And teach.
it's not easy. It is not easy, but I think if one studies and focus on it, Rumi says it is inexhaustible. You cannot actually get the end of it. When if that's why he says, if I speak about love, 100 resurrection will pass and still I will not be finished. But you can get a sense of it, experientially. For example, spiritual consent. To be happy with what you have. Like Jesus has a very beautiful statement. He says, look at the birds in the sky. God has given them, like food. They are not dying out of starvation. A God who is, giving them food will not leave you without food. God who has created a stomach will create a food for it as well. So be content and work. Doesn't mean that you should be lazy, but you should be content with what you have. And I think that will give a spiritual satisfaction, and that will close the door of greedy, to become greedy. Because that's very dangerous. To become greedy, you don't look at what is lawful and what's not lawful. You just get it, whatever it is. And in fact, sometimes even it is not lawful, you said, well, it's good to have it. This is money. You shouldn't escape it. You should get it. And that's why it becomes really burden upon human being. So there is no like a one sentence answer to that question. But it is experiential, and it continues maybe throughout life. Yes.
So since it's almost 9 now, so we'll take the last question. No? So I'd really like to thank you.
Thank you.
For a very inspiring talk on
so
Rumi's
much.
work and his philosophy of life. It's indeed beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you.